Our field of play is our calendar. That's the field of play. That's where
Beautiful.
all the activity is happening. Now I can take a look at your calendar, and based on what's on your calendar, I know exactly what your values are.
What we're really doing is amplifying character traits that we already have, that we
Yeah.
just we need them like juiced. And so
Yeah.
we're finding this alter ego that has those character traits amplified front and center. So that's the authenticity thread.
In the context of business, people can hide in business so easy.
Mm.
And I'm a performance guy. Like, you can't hide. I need to be able to stab results with a pencil. I need to be able to pinpoint things.
This is episode 177 of the Brilliant Balance podcast. And today we are meeting our inner superheroes with my guest, Todd Herman. Todd is a coach and a mentor to elite performers and pro athletes on all kinds of things: mindset, performance, strategy, and execution. He is the author of this incredible book called The Alter Ego Effect: The Power of Secret Identities to Transform Your Life. It was an international bestseller. It's all about mastering your identity to really create change quickly. And I'm so excited to share it with you today. Todd actually grew up on a farm in Canada. You'll hear him say in this episode he's in Canada at the time we were recording, but he typically lives in New York City with his wife, and they have 3 young children. And as a coach, he's really known for being brutally honest and sometimes tough on his clients. His work has been featured on PBS, The Today Show, Fox Sports, and in the New York Times. In fact, we recorded this just before the Super Bowl, and Todd had 2 clients competing in the game, although he shared with us that he never shares names. Todd, I think you'll find, moves really seamlessly between fields, whether it's athletes or working moms, it's same to him. And I love his direct communication style and the really carefully researched approaches that he shares. He is a total pro. And I know I had a serious aha about employing different alter egos in different roles that I play in my life. So I'd love to hear what you think about that idea after you listen to the episode. All right, without further ado, let's meet Todd Herman. Well, Todd, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to jam with you and your crew.
It's going to be great. Let's start by getting everyone grounded in what life looks like for you these days. It's always great to get a kind of peek behind the curtain. So tell us what today's schedule looked like for you, for your family, for work.
Yeah. So today I woke up at 4:45, and then I had a 5:30 call. I've got a standing call with a client on Wednesdays at 5:30. So a private client that owns a large company, and so that was an hour of us working together. And then after that call, it was me writing a bunch of new content for some programming that we're putting together, editing some things for my team that they need from me on the marketing side of things for some like sales pages and things that they're putting together. And then at 10 o'clock, I just got off so it's 11 o'clock my time right now, but I just got off of a 1-hour mentoring call with this other group of business leaders that we have. And then this call, and then the rest of the afternoon, I've got another interview that I'm doing, and then I'm working on a project for about 4 hours this afternoon. So I've got a new book that I'm working on right now. So
you have a deep work chunk coming up this afternoon.
yeah.
4
And I
hours of
typically don't
focus.
do deep work chunks later in my day. Typically my deep work chunk is at the beginning of the day, just because I know how my energy maps. So yeah.
Hopefully you'll bring it this afternoon when you need it.
Oh, I'll bring it.
Yeah.
I'll flip the switch.
And tell us about family. What about this evening?
So about 4 o'clock, my 2 girls come home from school. 5:15, then my little boy comes home from preschool, and then we'll have dinner at 5:30, and then it's full on, get the kids wound down for bed. I'm typically sucky at that, in that I like to rile up my kids. Like, we mess around, like you're supposed to be winding them down, but
You're winding them up.
we
Yeah.
we wrestle and we do other things. So and and then they'll be in bed by 8:30, and then it'll be my wife and my time. So her birthday is tomorrow too. So
Oh, fun,
yeah.
fun. I always love this question because I think, we can sit at the outside of people who are influencers or authors and wonder, like, what does it really look like
Yep.
behind the scenes? I've always been curious about that. And I love that you're willing to share a little peek behind the curtain. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the stuff that I actually work with people on is like designing. I call so when that's actually where like so one of my programs, 90 Day Year, which has been a very successful program, and I've had 125,000 people come through that program. Whether it's through corporate or whether it's the entrepreneurs that have come through it. But when I started out my company in '97, one of my companies in '97, it was focused on working with teenage athletes on the inner game of sport, right? So mental toughness and peak performance strategies. And then another company got born out of that called No Limits, which I ended up selling back in 2007. But when I started getting into the corporate or the professional world, I had a strategy in a way that I helped athletes get really amazing results fast, and it was called the 90-day sprint. And then when I got into the corporate world, I brought that same sort of methodology. And I was sitting down talking to an executive at a big oil company, and he said sprint. He's like, that's just not. And this is before sprints became a
We're
thing.
agile, right?
Yeah, yeah. This is like early 2000s.
Mhm.
And he's like, sprint really isn't a word that we use. He's like, but one of the things that you do is you compress time that it takes to get a result. So for us, we work in the world of calendars. So what if because we were rolling this thing out to there. He's like, what if we called it like our 90-day year? And so he's the one who actually coined it. And I was
I
like,
love
that's
it. It's
freaking
so
great name.
juicy.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for that.
Yeah.
And so when I got into this world of working with, it's the same crowd that's here right now. Like when I'm working with an athlete, there is a field of play that's defined. There's a chalk line that goes around the soccer field. There's two nets at either end. There's a line that goes across the middle. There's offside. Like there's rules that are there. And this is the stuff that you'd be battling with, the people here is,
Yeah.
in order to create a balanced life, we need to actually define what this life is supposed to be for me.
Yes.
I don't want to play your life.
Right.
Like, because if I play by your rules, then I'm going to end up not liking this life that I have. And that's where self-awareness comes in. And that's a journey that we all go through. But in the world of business, in sport, I could point to how many goals you scored, assists, how many successful passes that you had, and how much time you got to spend when you were out there and things like that. But in the context of business, people can hide in business so easily. And I'm a performance guy. Like you can't hide. I need to be able to stab results with a pencil. I need to be able to pinpoint things.
Mm-hmm.
And so our field of play is our calendar. That's the field of play. That's where all the activity is happening. Now I can take a look at your calendar, and based on what's on your calendar, I know exactly what your values are.
Yep.
I know what you value. I know what's important to you. So if you lead a team of 15 people, but I don't see any one-on-one calls in your week, I know that you say that you value team, but how can you value team when you're not talking to anybody?
Yeah.
So now you're out of alignment with your values. So
Yep.
so really designing out someone's calendar, that's how really people should be looking at as a filter for the quality of their life is dependent upon the quality of the activities that are sitting in their calendar.
And the alignment between those activities and what they've declared their priorities. That's how you win in this field of play. Yeah.
Is your values. And this isn't like my opinion. I'm a science guy. So, the largest study that was done on basically, human fulfillment and performance was Martin Seligman, and who started the positive psychology movement. And his company, through the characters, they outlined that the people who were the most fulfilled in life and successful had actively defined what their character traits were and then made it a focus of every single day of living through those traits, living through those values.
Oh, that's good.
And so I talk about that in the bright yellow book behind me. I talk about that as like, that's one of the reasons why the alter ego effect is so powerful, is because when people have employed this in their lives, what they're really doing is they're actively and intentionally deciding on what they want their superpowers to be, what their character traits are, and then they live through them
forward. Yeah.
They call them forward. And that's why it's
so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I want to see that in your calendar then. I want to see your character traits showing up in the activities that you're choosing to do.
Oh, I want to get into all of this. Let's go back just a half step. So you call yourself a peak performance coach. I love that title. And you've mentioned here you worked with athletes, you've worked with executives, and everyone in between. And what we're trying to get to is fulfillment or potential, right? We want to
Mhm.
fulfill our potential. What do you think most often stands in the way of someone's ability to do that?
Well, there's a lot of things
Give
that
me a
can,
couple.
yeah, get in their way. Um, one of the hidden forces that holds some people back is basically the narrative of and the story that they tell about who that they are, where that they've come from, and then what that means about them. So the story that we're story making beings. That's what actually is the thing that activates the emotional side of ourselves. And so, the traumas that happened to us when we were younger, whether they were accidental traumas, a car accident, or whether they were, other types of traumas, because trauma comes in all form. The way that the brain experiences trauma is in that moment, there's a burst of cortisol, that happens in the brain and it fuses a bunch of wires together. And then, 7 years later, after the car accident that you were just in, when you hear a bell ringing, it sets you off in some way and you can't figure out why. And that's because 5 minutes before your car accident, you walked out of the 7-Eleven and the little bell at the top of the door rang.
Mhm.
And because that was a part of, that's not something you're going to remember forever because it's not an important fact, but it was going into your electrical memory bank. And then when the cortisol bursted into your brain, it fused a bunch of your wires together. And then you don't know that explains why we get
Right.
triggered by things that we can't explain.
So
And so,
fascinating.
so traumas is one of the things that can hold people back and not being able to resolve those traumas in some way, like getting some perspective on it and seeing that, you didn't choose that. I mean, and I can come from a place of speaking. I mean, I was someone who, and I'm very open about it. My story is out there. I'm raped and sexually abused when I was 12 years old at a church camp. When I was 12, over the course of 2 days, by two men, and that ruled a big part of my life. I was many suicide attempts in my teenage and 20 when I was in my 20s. Battled like severe depression throughout a good chunk of my life, and it wasn't only recent until about in the last 5 years that through really plant-based medicine therapies, I was in the largest MDMA study at Bellevue Hospital in New York City, by the MAPS Institute, NYU, and Bellevue.
Yeah.
And that really, it was like pulling me through this vortex of getting me out of the somatic. So like
Yes.
trauma gets stored in the body and it got me out of the somatic stuff.
Yes. I've
And
heard you
then,
talk about the MDMA study in a couple other interviews. And as a survivor of trauma and somebody who's teaching from that place and
yeah,
and recognizing that the stories we tell ourselves about the things that have happened to us and then what it means we can and can't do. And again, I like how you're delineating like whether that's giant trauma that we would all recognize or
yeah,
whether it's kind of micro trauma and
yeah,
a series of paper cuts that add up.
yeah,
They really can get in our way. They change how we see ourselves,
yeah,
and that is something that can, we're kind of in a smaller version of who we are actually meant to be. So the alter ego effect
yeah,
is a way to get past that, to construct an identity. You call it the alter ego, and I want to ask you to talk about it.
yeah.
How do you define alter ego?
Yeah, so I want to wrap that up around, some of the things that stop people. So just to kind of wrap that up
Sure.
is so traumas are a way, and then the key there is really finding a new meaning about what that is. And so I've got a framework and a reframe for people that now, and not even now, but I knew even when I was struggling with some of that depression stuff that um, I I got superpowers from that event. I got what I call capabilities, and it's spelled cape dash abilities. Just like the guy behind me.
Mhm.
Those like if we can look at those things in a way of going, what cape was I given? And one of the capes that I was given was an extraordinary amount of empathy for other people. That's why a lot of the now I don't attract in wounded people. That's not it. It's that, but when I am working with someone, I don't overpromise. Like I stay in my lane. I'm not here to do therapy with people. I am not a licensed therapist. I don't do psychotherapy. I'm not a psychoanalyst or anything like that. And I think that's one of the challenges I see inside of the personal development space is people don't stay in their lanes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's someone that is actually coming from a nice place because they want to be very helpful for people. But some of the ways that you be really helpful for people is know where you've got your limits. Define, like I know where I'm strong and I know where I don't have, any training around that. So, but there is a cape that's there. There is a phenomenal cape that's there. It has to be because nature tells us that. You got up, you got down, you got inside, you got outside. Nature is the greatest ruler of how to think about life. Like if you can really think through these paradigms, you can't have bad without good. So in that bad thing that happened, I was probably given something good. And maybe that's just, I'm maybe more emotionally resilient than other people. I didn't end up in the grave, even though I attempted to make that happen a few times. So there are capabilities that are there for people. So that's just one way that we can hold ourselves up is that the story is the hardest part for people to navigate.
Yeah.
And then to your question, that's why the alter ego became my kind of centerpiece way that I could work with an executive or athletes because, and this is kind of a writer downer for people. I've done enough keynote speeches on this that I know I can tell when people write things down is when I share a slide that I say to people, we always act through whatever we associate ourselves with. Our identity shapes our reality. So we always act through whatever we associate ourselves with. And how most of us associate with ourselves is through stories of past things that happened to us or that we did as well. And then the meaning that we give it. And most of us, because it's our own story, we attach big meaning to these things, as opposed to, what if it's just that someone said something mean to you today? And that was their thing. It's not your story.
Yeah.
That's where I've got like this iron wall built up of like, you can tell me lots of things about what you think that I am, but I know how intentional I am in the way that I show up in the world of, I'm going to lead with kindness. And kindness isn't niceness. Very big distinction. And I think that's probably a lot of the battle of, the ladies that are here is the difference between nice and kind.
I'm writing, that's my writer down, or kindness isn't niceness. That's a good one.
No, it's not. Because nice is being a doormat for other people. Oh, well, I'm just like, but there's a way, but the great thing is you can actually switch from niceness to kindness, because kindness can be, if I'm being kind to someone, that kindness might be saying or challenging a friend with like, that's not right. Mm-hmm. That's actually being kind because you're treating them as you see them they could be. Mm-hmm. That's actually being kind. And that's the best kind of coaching. That's the best kind of parenting is like, I don't want to be nice. Don't care about nice. I want to be kind. I want to know that there's nuance that's there. There's probably, even though you're projecting at me that, it's not really about me. It's about something that's going on there. Yeah. However, I am going to stop you in your tracks because that isn't appropriate behavior.
I love that. I think
but I'm not going to leave you there. I can, even though you attacked me, I can still go, but how can I help you? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I know that I show up that way in the world. And, do I get it right all the time? Of course not. But I can get it right way more than probably what other people would.
Yeah. So
the alter ego, then going back to that association, our great superpower that we have is our creative imagination. There's a force within that's called resistance, and you could call it, it's made up of like fear. It's called, traumas and stories. It's just this big black ball of a bunch of things. But the great thing is the creative imagination is a bigger weapon to beat that. And so that's what the alter ego does, is it taps into our creative imagination. And the beautiful thing about this idea is that every single person here has already used it, because we used it when we were kids, when we were pretending that we were playing nurse or teacher or our favorite superhero or our favorite character in the shows that we watched or a favorite athlete when we were out on the front driveway. And it's us disassociating from what we think that we could do and going, yeah, but when I'm Randy Chastain, or when I'm, Layla Ali, or when I'm like, automatically like you can actually see the physical transformation happen. Like
Yes.
people like just they grow. You can just see them grow when they're like, because it's like you've just unshackled yourself from the shell that you think that you are, and you've just stepped into this bigger idea, which isn't about you being fake. It's about you honoring the fact that you've got a whole unlimited set of traits that are within you that you're gifted with. We just don't use them every single day.
That's what I connected when you said this a few minutes ago. It was what we're really doing is amplifying character traits that we already have, that
Yeah.
we need them like juiced. And so
Yeah.
we're finding this alter ego that has those character traits amplified front and center. So that's the authenticity thread that
That's
I
exactly right.
imagine you get that question all the time. Like, is
All
this
the time.
fake? No, it's
No.
an amplification of something that's already within us. I love
It's an
that.
amplification of authentic traits that are already there that you just don't bring out every day. And again, that's the danger is, like let's say for me, every day when I show up in my business, there is a specific Todd who's there. Okay. And he has been built to help me win in my field of play. So, I've got, I'm a CEO of a company. I've got training programs. Like there's more than just Todd coaching people. I don't get to do as much of that anymore as I used to back in the day, but that's because the businesses have developed. I've got a software company and stuff. But when I'm coaching people who are trying to achieve big things, and I've got two clients that are competing in the Super Bowl this weekend, right? A lot of these people have huge personalities, and a lot of them are surrounded by people who are yes people. That's not what people come to me for. So what I need to do is I need to break through the hard exterior of some people's personas, because the only way that I can create peak performance opportunities for people is to really understand how they think in their head. And so I need to create a safety net there. That's why I never share who I work with. I'm the only guy who doesn't do that. And
Right.
so, and I'm known for that. People know that I can recommend the guy sitting next to me in the locker room to Todd, because Todd will never let that person down. Because literally, just the way that sports works is there's nothing but people who want something from them. Okay.
Right.
And I don't want your name. What I want to do is help you succeed in your chosen career path. So I'm a challenger then in the way that I show up. But is that really who I am? No. That's the guy who has been set on that field to win. But when I'm done this, my glasses come off, because I use my glasses as my switching agent to help me really show up as Coach Todd. But when I walk out the door and I'm with my kids, my model in my mind for how I want to be around them is different. That's Mr. Rogers is my inspiration there.
I
So
love
he's
it.
my mental model for how I want to be for them. And that guy is patient, kind, fun loving, you know, and gets on and creative, and the key there is patience.
Yes.
And so now, is that going to help me win with my 7-year old, my 6-year old, and my 3-year old boy? 100%. Now, does that mean that I win every single moment when I'm out there with them? No. But if I'm just 20% better in my world of performance, that's a huge win to those 3 little kids who don't have to deal with a challenging guy. Because again, when you're flexing the muscle all day long of like, because we're working 8 to 10 hours, I'm working
Sure.
8 to 10 hours, even more sometimes. You can start to believe this mystery that I am this person, but it's not who I am. It's just one role that I play.
So I want to ask a question because I am imagining light bulbs going off where people think, "Oh, I can have more than one."
Yeah.
You can sort of like shift into these identities, which one comes forward based on the interaction that you're in. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So what people need to recognize is one of the really difficult parts, and this is actually something. It's sometimes I get a little bit perturbed with sometimes the argument that women have it harder than men in the societal and cultural sort of stories about what it means to be a woman and where you should be sitting in the home and things like that. Because men have it hard too. It's just not talked about as much,
In
with how
different
these
ways. Yeah.
in different ways. It's just different ways. But I will say that I would say women do have a real challenge in the new world that's happened in the last 50 years of the perception of being a successful mom and a successful career woman as well. Okay. Men don't quite have that same layer on top of them. There's actually an excuse of not being, you don't have to be a successful dad.
Mm-mm.
There's just an expectation that you better be a very successful professional,
Agree.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So now you're under, and that's where a lot of men's challenges are, is like, their
Financial
hierarchical,
provision and
their
mhm.
hierarchical ranking there.
Sure.
But there's two terms that I want to kind of give people. One is role strain, and one is role conflict. Now, what does that mean? So, role strain is, we all have many roles that we play in life. This is why the alter ego, like I talk about the science of why all this stuff is effective, but there is no one you, right? Like there's many sides of Cheryl Ann, like and you're different. Like when you're here, you're the inquisitive and curious reporter, journalist, interviewer that wants to kind of get to some nuggets of gold for people. But then when you're leading your business or your team, you need to
Yep.
be someone slightly different. There might be some different traits that show up there, some different strengths,
Yep.
and in the world of psychology, single self theory was one of the core founding pillars of the world of psychology, but it was flawed because their hypothesis was that the people who had one identity and showed up in the world with that same identity across all the roles were the healthiest mentally, meaning that they had the lowest rates of anxiety and stress disorders or depression. Now, me working with an athlete, I'm like, that guy that's on the field,
I
or
don't
that girl
want
that's
that
on the,
guy at my dinner party.
you don't
Right.
want that person at your dinner party. Of course
Right.
not. And so it never made sense to me. I mean, maybe it's because I grew up in a big farm and ranch, and so you're kind of rooted in pragmatism.
Mm-hmm.
And I've really applied that to my world, but it broke. So I didn't take a lot of their stuff. And so I've always been a big proponent of multiple selves. And now, since 2008, one of the largest fields of psychological study is multiple self theory, which is no longer a theory, but it's that the people who actually see themselves having many selves, and they are intentional about those selves and how they show up in their roles or on their fields, like in context to life, have the lowest rates of anxiety and stress disorder and depression, because they don't put a bunch of rules on themselves that, oh, I'm being inconsistent.
Mm.
No, of course you should be inconsistent. You should be inconsistent with, like, my kids know that when they walk into this office, dad's just different. He's got glasses on and he's different. And I talk to them about that, and I explain to them like who daddy needs to be in here and how he shows up, and it helps me so helping them see that. So this goes back to my comment then, role strain. Role strain is when you have a role and then there's two sets of rules for how you think you need to show up. So let's use one, athlete. So the athlete has got a set of conflicting expectations on one status, meaning I need to be the best on my team, but they tell me not to make my teammates look bad, or I don't want to make my teammates look bad. That's actually creating role strain, because I want to be my absolute best, but I don't want to make my teammates look bad. Now that's a personal values conflict.
Conflict. Mm-hmm.
And what they did was they brought a value from over here off the field and brought it into the field of play that shouldn't be there. I talk about it in the book, this one tennis player who was widely known as being one of the a woman who should have been winning major tournaments, but she would get knocked out in the second or third round, constantly under indexing. And so I started working with her at the U.S. Open in Flushing Meadows in New York City. Like, that's where we live right now. I'm in Canada right now to see some family, but she would all of a sudden take her foot off the pedal when she was beating someone badly, and it's because fundamentally she felt bad for them, because one of her core values is fairness.
Right?
Fairness and justice. And I was like, and when I finally discovered it, I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
You can't bring that onto the court.
No, you can. Let's shift it though. You're being unfair to that person in their career development by not beating them as badly as you could, because they need to get the full experience of just how good you are so that they can start leveling up their training and development.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And so just that alone. So instead of pulling out the trait, it's re-engineering the trait.
Okay, wait, let's double click on, I want to say that again. So this tennis player was backing down mid
Yeah.
game because
Didn't
she
know
was
why.
like, I'm basically beating this person. I feel
Yeah.
bad and
Yeah.
I want to be fair to them. So I'm going to dumb down my game so that it's a more of a level playing field.
Yeah.
Right.
Gonna take my
And
foot off
your reframe was what? Say it one more time.
that you're being unfair to that person because they're not getting the full experience of just how good you are. And that's robbing them of the understanding of what it's going to take for them to get to your level. You're actually creating a narrative in their own head that isn't true. They haven't gotten the full experience of just how amazing your talents are. And her and I were sitting at Penelope's, which is this great little kind of cafe in New York City on 30th Street and Lexington Avenue, and they have the best BLTs in New York City, by the way. And so she sort of leaned back in her chair, and there's only about four tables in the room, but she sort of leaned back in this wooden chair, and she just had tears just flooding down because it was like this entire release of, oh my God, for like 11 years I've tried, I could not figure this thing out, and you're exactly right. And that's oftentimes like those breakthrough moments, like there's an emotional release that happens where it's like, that's the thing. Like I still get like chills just telling
Yeah.
the story about it because it was such a transformative change for her. And then she went off and had this unbelievable streak of wins over the course of the next 18 months with it. And then we found a new blocker. And so, just evaluating those things. So that's role strain is when you've got one of your identities and you've got two things that are conflicting, it creates role strain. So like, man, you talk about moms, there's role strains all over the place.
Yeah.
And so I like hunting for those things. And then the second one that's important is called role conflict. Role conflict is when you've got this one person who's got many roles that they play, and sometimes they're conflicting with each other. This is the one that's going to resonate deeply as well. So
Yes.
you've got one that's mom, you've got one that's wife, you've got one that's career professional or entrepreneur,
Yep.
and there's a lot more roles that we have, not just
Yes.
those three. There's daughter, right? Like we can all be triggered by moms and dads in some ways. And as a dad, that's probably my biggest challenge, was realizing that, oh, at some point in time I'm going to do or say something that's going to give my kids some element of trauma. And it was like terrifying to me
Mm-hmm.
because they're just little kids, are absorbing everything
Everything.
and they don't understand context at a young age. And so that was my big challenge that I had to break through for myself, was that realization. But to give you an example, so you might have someone who's a team member of a sport. So they have to attend practice. And then the student, they need to complete homework. Then they got the granddaughter, she needs to visit grandma. So there's all these things that I'm supposed to do to be a great granddaughter, a great student, and a great team member. And that creates role conflict. Which one should I do?
So pause, because that everybody listening, I want you to just find the just top three
Yeah.
examples in your own life where you're like, these roles are directly in conflict with one another, either with where my time quote should go or
Yeah.
how I should behave or how I should act. That notion of conflict is an everyday event in our community, Todd. So I want to make sure people are internalizing that to their own life because this is going to be super relevant.
Yeah. And so what I like to, and this always like breaks a lot of people's frames because I'm coming in, peak performance person who works with Olympic athletes. These people are doing tremendous things or whatever. And then I say this, which is find an area of your life to be fucking average. Schedule it.
Yes. Get a B.
Yeah. Like,
Mhm.
because maybe you could take a lot of pressure off yourself if you say, you know what, my next 90 days where I want to really level up my life is in being a phenomenal professional. And I'm going to be okay with being average as a wife, and I'm going to be okay with being average right now as a mom. So I'm going to remove some expectations so that I can develop this one side of me. And what people don't realize is a lot of times when you develop this great professional side of you, there's a domino effect. There's skills that you build that help you in these areas. And then you go, you know what? I might be average. Maybe you're not average in two areas. You're just average in one. You're taking some of the pressure off. Like I want to you know, take off that pressure cap for some people. And so that's the challenges that people have is like, we've got these rules and these conflicts where we need to be spending our time or how we're supposed to be showing up. And then it creates this conflict. Well, which one should I be choosing? Should I be an amazing, athlete, or should I be a better student, or should I be a great granddaughter, or, insert the roles for you. And that's role strain and role conflict.
And choices. I mean, endemic in all of this is choices that we get to choose, which is so hard for us to do. And we had Greg McCune on the show talking about essentialism. And I think
Sure.
that was hard to hear that message of you're going to have to let some things go that you would love to do or might be great at doing in order to have enough capacity for, the choices that remain. And I'm hearing some of that here of, what are you going to bring to the forefront? What are you going to allow to recede in these various elements of your life?
But the great thing about it, though, the great thing about that when you do that is when you approach it that way, when a part of your life isn't like all tickety boo or whatever, you don't blame yourself, you don't judge yourself, because the two of the ruling drivers of negative force for why we do things is guilt and shame.
Yes.
And so whatever I can do in the processes, the books, the programming that I've got to help remove guilting and shaming from the reason why you're doing something, that alone can up-level someone's fulfillment and quality of their life. And at the end of the day, again, the ruling thing that helps you navigate these different roles that you have is, I am very intentional about the character traits that I want to be bringing to those situations. And in some of these roles, it's better that I bring these traits rather than these traits.
Yes.
And now what happens is you get to see yourself as a more complete and whole person, right? And you're not shutting off one side of you for your entire life. You're actually allowing to see yourself as more of a very nuanced individual, because you are.
So for anybody who's been resisting this notion of multiples, right? Like, I don't want to be different in one place or another. That, what you just said to me, is how it reconciles, how we tie that all together. Like, we are wonderfully complex, and we may not be able to bring all of it to every situation. So there's this freedom of saying, if I have chosen the right roles in my life and I am bringing these aspects or these character traits forward, and I actually get to be more complete. Yes. It's just not 100% in every one of the instances. And I think that's extremely relatable, Todd, that especially when those roles are what is effective could be in conflict with one another. What makes me, when I'm at my best as a mother, the character traits that are front and center are different than what makes me when I'm at my best as the business owner. Mm-hmm. It's just true, right? And so I don't want to be exactly the same, but I still have all of those traits inside of me. So that's where I think we reconcile the authenticity bug that, people. I'm stealing tickety boo, by the way. That's going with
that's
me.
From my Nana.
I love it. I love it. I am going to need to wrap us up a little bit here. Yeah. I want to make sure people know where to find you online. So can you tell us the best place to do that?
Yes, sir. So my home base on the interwebs is toddherman.me. And then for the book, it's alteregoeffect.com. And then I also have children's book that I came out with last year that is taking the alter ego effect and put it into kids form, called My Super Me. And it's the story of a little boy who has a stuffed animal that, is actually a character in his own head. And Captain Storm allows him to find the courage to do tough stuff. And,
I love it. My Super Me.
The messaging that kids get is that, oh, you're too small. The world around them is built for adults. And so everything is just overwhelming for them. And and so, even when I wrote that book, you'll see me playing with my own alter ego of Mr. Rogers in even the rhyming of the book and how it works. So yes, the toddherman.me, and you can find out more. And then I'm on all the socials as well.
Excellent. Let's do a quick speed round.
Yeah.
First, what makes you feel brilliant?
When a client has this, like, I can just see it when there's like a physical shift, when they're like the alignment of the mental and emotional and physical self. They get it, they feel it, and they can see themselves doing it, and you can just see the shift happen in someone. That's when I feel brilliant.
What's your favorite time saving or productivity hack?
Getting someone else to do it.
What have you learned to say no to?
Oh, so many. There's like a million things that I've said no to. Um, no to people that are outside of alignment with my values.
What's one dream you're chasing these days?
Dream I'm chasing these days is the dream of an open economy. No, the dream would be the figuring out of the formatting of the next book that I'm writing.
Awesome. What's the song you turn on when you need to get in the zone?
Lose Yourself by Eminem.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Todd, thank you so much for joining us. I just can't wait to hear the feedback on this episode. People are going to have a lot of aha moments that I hope they write to us and share with us. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, how great is he? I mean, beyond stealing tickety boo, which I am absolutely doing, I'm going to be thinking about alter egos for days, especially how they can be used in the various roles that I play in my life. Because I thought that was so insightful, the notion that the way that we want to show up, the elements of our character and personality that we want to elevate or amplify may be different. It certainly are different, I would say, in my work within Brilliant Balance, my life as a wife, as a parent. There's just different aspects of ourselves that we can bring to the foreground. And I thought his framework for that was so powerful. I love him talking about Mr. Rogers as his alter ego as a dad. Like, what a great human to just hold in your mind as you're walking into your home ready to be a fully engaged parent. So I would love to hear your insights and your alter egos. Let's get you in the conversation. We can do that in the Brilliant Balance Facebook group. Just go to Facebook, search Brilliant Balance, join the group, or you can DM me on Instagram. I'm at C Skolnicki, or we are at brilliant_balance. We'd love to have you in the Instagram community as well, especially if you're willing to share your alter ego with us and see some other people sharing theirs. I would love it if you do that. That's all for today, my friends. Let's be brilliant.